Hello everyone. My name is Devin Thorpe, and I'm a Forbes contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. And we have an extraordinary guest today with us. We have the CEO of RBC Wealth Management US here, John Taft. John, thank you very much for joining us. It's exciting to have you again.
My pleasure, Devin.
Well, John, today was a big day at RBC. Why don't you tell us why it was such a big day at RBC?
Our annual Blue Water Day, Devin, and big is right. It's been fun to watch the scale of activities today grow over the course of our commitment to clean water and preserving water globally, which we all falls under an umbrella program we call our Blue Water Initiative. But today, around the world, more than 20,000, about a quarter of RBC's workforce was involved in 650 different what we call community makeovers in over 20 countries around the world. And this is a way to do several things. First of all, to build employee engagement and awareness of what RBC is doing in the clean water preservation space, and also to get something done. I mean, these are projects that actually make a difference in local communities.
Now, some of your team were actually out there today on the ground doing stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what they may have been doing today?
Well, sure. Just to, I'll give you a couple of snippets. Here in Minnesota, which is where I'm located, of course, we have the iconic Mississippi River. We sent out about 100 employees and a bunch of school buses to clean some prairie land, and there's some invasive species had gotten in there, and the prairie wasn't doing what a prairie is supposed to do, which is, among other things, it filters water before it runs into the watershed. The Mississippi River, north of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, is the water resource from which 500,000 people, or actually several million people, draw their water every day. So having clean water running into the Mississippi River is important. So they did that. In Washington, D.C., cleanup of the Potomac River. In Boston earlier, actually in April, they worked with the Charles River Restoration Group to clean up the Charles River. We had a group in Rochester, Minnesota, which is where the Mayo Clinic is headquartered, planted an herb garden, and then they are going to be irrigating that herb garden using a rain barrel, and then when the herbs grow and they harvest, they're going to deliver them to homebound folks in the local community. And then also in Parsippany, New Jersey, there was a program around innovative use of rain barrels. So that just gives you some idea of the different activities that are going on. And the fun thing is there's a tremendous amount of energy and the learning that takes place, the awareness building, not just within with our employees, but in the communities where these things are taking place is really fantastic.
Well, water is clearly a huge issue, right? I mean, there's probably no greater common issue in the world that we face than to maintain a clean water supply. But I wonder if at some level, John, you're at a level in the organization where you influence decisions. You drive to choices at RBC around the commitment to water. I wonder if you could tell us why, at a personal level, water is so important to you.
Well, I'd be happy to do that, but let me reinforce the point you made in introducing the question, which is that actually the World Economic Forum, I mean, not a fly by night or tree hugging group. This is hardcore. Economists and economic development people identified the third most frequently cited issue that people are worried about is water crises in the future. I mean, talk about something that could derail economic growth everywhere around the world. That water, not having enough water to serve our population and to provide water for business uses is a critical issue. But as you know, I have been writing about the whole issue of stewardship. Core principle of stewardship. I think that's one of the underpinning principles in the financial services industry, but I also think it is a principle to which we have to adhere if we want to address any of the issues that are facing society, and in particular environmental issues. And stewardship has a lot of different roots, secular and religious. People mean different things by it, but fundamentally what it means is responsibly managing what's been entrusted to your care. Now, what more important thing is there than the earth, God's dominion, entrusted to us, not just for today's generation, but for generations in perpetuity. And if you look at how we're doing by that standard, we're not doing particularly well. Now, next to the air we breathe, the water we drink, and bathe in, and is the most critical resource for the survival of the human species. And we are complacent when it comes to understanding just how endangered our water resources today are in the not too distant future if we don't take action as stewards of that particular resource. So that's where my interest comes from.
RBC has really been working on this issue at a global level. We talked a little bit about some of the local projects, the specific actions, some of which took place today. I wonder if you would help put this back in perspective. We've talked about this before, but remind us a little bit of the global scale of RBC's commitment to water.
Well, as I mentioned at the start of our segment here, we made a commitment, a $50 million, 10-year, decade-long commitment to making grants to organizations involved with preserving water quality, restoring water resources, and protecting water resources. We call it the Blue Water Initiative. We're over $40 million 7 years into this commitment. And just this year, just today actually, we announced a whole new round of grants. In the United States, there are leadership grants and community action grants. Leadership grants, as you might imagine, are the larger grants. We made 40 grants, announced 40 new grants today. Now, this is something that goes on every year. And 3 of them were leadership grants. So we made a grant to a watershed protection association in Princeton, New Jersey. It's all about, a lot of what we're learning is that runoff, from storms in the urban environment that we live in, with landfills lying around, with storm sewers that aren't completely separated. Runoff creates a lot of issues and pollutes water resources. So this group we gave $65,000 to the Stony Brook Millstone Watershed Association to address water quality issues in Princeton, New Jersey. Then in Pennsylvania, the Lancaster Farmland Trust is involved in cleanup efforts that affect the Chesapeake Bay. We have spent a lot of time on the Chesapeake Bay because when you look at the number of people who rely on, use that particular watershed, it's 15 million people are affected by the Chesapeake Bay water resource, and so we're focusing there. And then interesting project in the Bronx, Wildlife Conservation Society is going to be addressing contaminated stormwater, and that actually affects people who go to the Bronx Zoo. Creates all sorts of issues for the zoo. So that's not the only reason we're doing it to help the zoo, but one of the benefits is going to make visiting the zoo a lot more pleasant. And then last year, and I just actually sent out today a whole bunch of letters to corporate leaders here in the Twin Cities asking them to participate in funding a water fund that we created last year with a $100,000 grant to the Nature Conservancy of Minnesota. And that water fund is designed to protect the quality of water resources, again, upper Mississippi River, that the Twin Cities draw on for their drinking water every day. So that gives you a flavor of the different kinds of things we've done. I think I mentioned on your show last year, one of my favorites is we funded an organization of retired pilots, volunteer pilots that take researchers up in their planes for free, allow them to do whatever it is they need to do, photograph, map water resources so that they can then channel that information back into whatever they're doing to protect water. And that's a group out of Wyoming. So it ranges, far afield, but they're all got the single focus: will this help produce clean water, protect water resources over time?
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening to us visit that will be interested in learning more. But one group in particular, I'm sure, are people who are managing or tackling water issues on the ground somewhere in the world that will be interested in the resources you offer. Can you give us some coaching as to how people might approach RBC for some of this $50 million that isn't fully allocated yet?
Well, in any community that we're in, what we like to say is you don't have to know who to call, you just have to call who you know. So anybody who's in a community that has an RBC presence, and there are 200 different communities, over 200 in the United States, call the local office and tell them that you want to get in touch with the grants coordinator for the Blue Water Project. And they can get you in touch with our Community Affairs Charitable Giving Foundation, and that's the way to get into the grant making process as well. And one of the obviously should be clear from what I've told you. I mean, one of the hallmarks of this program is we don't do anything on our own. What we do with our money and with our employees and with the resources we can bring to bear is we partner with people who have already been out there in the communities working on these issues for years and who have the local knowledge and expertise for how to get things done. So this is a partnership initiative, and we're looking for partners. So put your hand in the air, let us know you're there, and then we can talk about whether there's a way to work with you.
Well, I am sure you're going to get some hands put in the air. John, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. It's a pleasure to have you, and I commend you for the good work you're doing. We're all a little less thirsty because of you.
Okay, well, thirsty and hopefully cleaner, and thank you. This is a critical issue, and Devin, as you recognize, is one that people don't realize is as important as it is. In the state of Minnesota, which is the one state where water is actually part of our name, Native American name, land of sky blue waters, people just assume water is an infinite resource that's not a scarce resource. Well, it's not true. It's not true here, and it's not true anywhere. We need to pay attention.
Boy, that's a great message to end on, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's do some good.